All right. Hey, Sean, welcome to Coding Chats with Callie.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. I wanted to chat with you because I feel like I actually chatted with you, I don't know, like a little over a year ago when we were kind of like both getting started out of boot camp and stuff like that. And so I just wanted to check in and see how things have progressed and kind of hear a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, for sure, Callie. Well, I think you know very well that this like field is very like interesting. It's really exciting sometimes, and it's really like challenging at times. It's really funny actually. Like right now, like as I like sit to like join this meeting, like
Yeah.
today was just one of those days where like leaving work, where it's just like, wow, imposter syndrome was just really just like through the
Oh,
roof.
no. What
Well,
happened?
it's just kind of par for the course, you know. It's just like you come up against like a particular challenge trying to figure out like how to navigate that. And it's like, I think like any other field out there, right? Like this is just one of those places where it's like it's very much like a roller coaster ride sometimes, where it's like you can feel just like on top of the world because you've
Yep.
accomplished this one task and you feel like a genius or you feel like a really smart person. And then you also totally have those moments where it's like,
Yes.
wow, like I feel way out of my elephant element, you know, and
Yeah.
just totally just kind of like figuring out how to kind of like ride like sort of more like that middle road of like those emotions and just kind of like navigate that um
Do you find that it gets easier like so on my team we call it like the peaks and valleys of
NCAA.
coding. Does it get easier when you're in a valley to be like, well, I know the peak is coming, or is every valley still just as tough?
I think it's probably going to depend on the individual, I think everybody's different, how they experience that kind of stuff. I think for me, definitely having like a good support network of just people like outside of work, that's like
Yeah.
unbelievably helpful for me. Just people I can talk to and just be like, yeah, I'm really struggling with just some stuff at work, like, and it's challenging. Like if I didn't have that kind of support network outside of like my work environment, like I don't think like I'd be able to deal with those like ups and downs like as effectively.
I feel you. If it makes you feel any better, I got a ticket maybe like a week and a half ago, and the like my mentor who gave me the ticket was like, "Oh yeah, this is pretty easy. You got like I could totally hand this off to you." And they literally had a pair program through the entire ticket because I
Yeah,
could not do it. So I feel like it doesn't matter what you learn and how much you learn. There's always going to be another valley of doom that you fall into.
totally. But I will say like ultimately I'm really grateful at like the opportunities I've gotten to learn. I
Yeah.
think so very similar to you, right? Like did like the boot camp route. And right, most of like what the exposure to is a lot of full stack stuff, right? So a lot of front end frameworks, a lot of back end frameworks and databases. And that's kind of really like, at least in my experience, was what I feel like I got exposed to
Yes.
in my boot camp experience. And then it's like coming out of that experience and then getting into like the working space a little bit. I think this is different for everybody, probably. I'm sure there are jobs out there where you kind of stay in that lane a lot. But I definitely know for me, like when I started at my job, I got like really thrust into like the DevOps space, which
Yeah.
super challenging, but also super rewarding and gave me a lot of opportunity to learn about things that I didn't even like. It's like you don't know what you don't know. And it's like, so you get like this opportunity to like learn about all this stuff, like networking, uh, I mean, everything around like Linux systems. Like when I first started at my job, my boss had asked me to transfer some like SSH keys over from one of our machines to another machine. And I remember just loading up like the machine he's talking about, and it's just a terminal. Like there's no interface whatsoever
Yeah.
anywhere. And like just like from my experience, I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my God, I feel so out of my element
I
right now.
feel you're in the element of hearing them. Like, well, how do we do this?
Just like purely looking at the command line and just feeling like I have no idea what to do.
Yeah.
But honestly, like that experience has been super, it's something I've been really thankful for just at the job that I've been at for a while now. Like I feel like I've gotten just like discomfort and
Yeah.
familiarity with like command line tools that have made understanding other processes just a lot better for me,
Hmm.
especially around like a current project I'm working on is just trying to get more familiar with like deployments because I've done deployments with kind of yeah, and I know you're doing your deploy in public section session. Um and I've done like deployments in the past, and they've given me the opportunity to kind of like work with like tools like Vercel or Railway, which kind of do a lot of that and abstract
Yeah.
that kind of away from you. So this has really given me an opportunity to kind of explore some of the actual like kind of more like the manual processes that go into a deployment setup, and then kind of like abstracting then how do you automate that yourself. So that's
Yeah.
kind of what I've been working on. I haven't really had the time to lately. Work has been so just like crazy like these past couple weeks, just a lot of deadlines and everything coming up. So I'm
How do
hoping
you balance deadlines with like learning at work?
to depends what you're working on, right?
Yeah.
Depends what you're working on. I mean, if you're working towards a deadline that is requiring you to get outside of your comfort zone, then yeah, you're learning as you go. Uh,
Okay.
that's definitely an experience. And then yeah, I think like for me, like this the challenge is always figuring out it's not so much balancing work and learning, it's balancing work, learning, and life outside of all those things. Cause like I'm noticing for me, that's super important. Like my relationship with my girlfriend outside of work and learning is super important. My relationship with my friends outside of work and learning is super important. So honestly, I'd say like figuring out how to find time and space for that to come into my life is really important because like when I put those things kind of back into my life and like kind of create that balance there, that helps those other two pieces kind of fall into place more naturally just because of that support system.
Yeah, I think that's an area that I need to work on more is the balance part of things. Because I feel like I don't know what to do when I get like a bug. I just can't let it go. Like I'll have nightmares about it, which I think we all do, but like I need to figure out a way to be like, all right, I'm done for the day. Close the
I'm
computer.
always so amazed too, Callie, because I feel like I always see you're so active, like you're so, and I'm always thinking like, wow, like she's got like a husband, she's got a kid, like she's like a super dev, like she's able to do it all. And I'm like, I don't know how I would do any of this, like with a kid as well.
Honestly, I think my brain is just like obsessive. So it's like if I start doing something, I just like get super obsessed and then like can't put it down. So I'm trying to be more balanced because I think I need that too. But I guess let's do, I don't want to really focus too much on boot camp because I feel like you're pretty far removed from boot camp now, but you went to Hack Reactor, correct?
Yep.
Okay. What made you decide to get into like the DevSecOps world?
Like I said, I was just forced to, and it was like, oh, this is cool stuff too. Like,
So it was
uh,
just applying and that's what you got?
so
Sorry.
so I was applying. I actually my title is full stack. Um,
Okay.
but for the first couple months, right, they kind of had me. They were like waiting to put me for some work, right? So they had me doing some kind of other work in the meantime, and they had me working on like physical servers and like
That sounds hard.
they're like in the data center, and I was just like, so it's really just I didn't have a choice. It was just kind of like, hey, you're gonna go learn this stuff because this is all we have for you to do right now until right we can kind of utilize the skills that you had on your resume to begin with.
Okay. And did you feel like you ended up liking that? And like, was that fun to kind of be thrust into a new world? Or was it kind of like, wait, I really want to get back to full stack?
Fun, stressful. I mean, all of it, it's
All
like
of the above. Yeah.
it's fun, it's stressful, but then at the same time, you want to get back to full stack, which I have had the opportunity to get back to. But it's nice
Woo.
having that knowledge and kind of bringing it with me kind of into the space I'm in right now.
Yeah, I love that. Did you kind of keep doing full stack development outside of work to like keep your skills up, or was that not really necessary?
So that was really challenging actually, because I felt like so much of my time outside of work was trying to play catch up with these skills that I didn't have any kind of insight into. So like right in the boot camp, like got a lot of knowledge of Docker, but like it was very like kind of like surface level. And I
Hmm.
definitely noticed I had to get like a much deeper kind of like even just getting more familiar with like the command line interface for Docker was just
Yeah.
like I really had to dive a lot more into, because I was so used to just using the GUI and spinning things up and using Docker Compose, that like just interacting with individual containers was a very new thing for me. So that's really where a lot of my time and focus went until I kind of got back to the full stack. And then when I got back into that, I was like, I haven't done this for like 8 months. I need to do like all these like refreshers on like how does React work again? Like what are all the things like that go into that?
Yeah, totally. How is it like? Are you working on a team for the application that you're building, or are you developing it kind of on your own?
Um, so yeah, for the most part, working with other devs here and there on different pieces of applications.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool. Do you like working with a team? Was it hard to go from kind of like the boot camp of experience of mostly building on your own to like what was that transition like from boot camp to like professional full stack dev?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges is, and still is just getting comfortable with reading other people's code and also writing code that other people are
Hmm.
going to read. That's definitely like an interesting challenge, like figuring out like how do I make sure that like the code that I write is approachable. I definitely don't do that perfectly, and definitely notice that I need to continue working on that. It's amazing like just what like a couple comments actually do in your code with
Yes.
other people, or even like when other people write comments in code that are like kind of like, well formatted, and just break up like the code into sections. Like that's like a godsend to me, like when I see that from other devs. um that's always like super helpful, just because it like, sometimes you open a file and it's like 500 lines, and if the other dev, right, has taken that time to just even put in like a comment line that just breaks up the like breaks that up with just a header of like, hey, this
Hmm.
entire next like 40 lines of code is dedicated to this. Like it just makes finding that later in the file so much easier. And so it's all those like kind of little
Yeah.
nuances, communicating with other devs, just understanding like what each other mean. And then honestly, like figuring out what like the project managers really mean when they're talking about something.
Okay, so yeah, so tell me more about like what's like the kind of like pull request standards and like workflow that your team has. What do you like about it? What do you think you could improve on it? I don't know why I'm like really interested in GitHub workflows, but I feel like from my two professional experiences, it's just like vastly different how the team works. So I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's like your standard workflow at any company, right? You get a ticket, right? With that ticket, you make a branch for that specific ticket, pretty much name the branch after that ticket, more or less, um, start working on it, right? And then when you feel like it's good to go and ready to be, added for a pull request, you just pull down whatever the most recent version of um, the main branch that your team is working on, resolve any conflicts that you might have locally on your end. And then once you do that, just push it up and hope that you don't get too many comments about things you need to fix.
So do you guys have like a testing? Do you have to add automating testing before you do a pull request?
So
Do you
we've
have
got certain
acceptance
tests.
criteria? Yeah, what's
Yeah, we've got certain tests for stuff. Can't really go into it too much though.
that's fair. Do you
Yeah.
feel like writing tests for your code has that helped you become a better developer, or did you always do that? Because I just recently started writing tests for my pull request at
Still,
the
still something
directive of my team. So
I hear you. No, it's still something I got to work on, to be honest.
okay. So what is kind of the future look like for you? Do you feel like full stack is where it's at? Are you missing the DevOps world?
Yeah, good question. I don't fully know. What's next for me? I think for the time being, I'm enjoying what I'm doing, as I'm doing it. Um, and really just trying to like absorb as much as I can, like while I can, like in my current role.
Mm-hmm.
I like my team. My team is super supportive. I like the company that I work for. I think the culture there is really solid.
I
Everyone's
love
really
that.
nice and super approachable. Uh, Definitely had so much opportunity to learn from like more of the senior engineers on my team. And continue to kind of have that opportunity to do so. So, I mean, personally, I feel like I'm in a position where I'm still learning a lot and still growing. And that for me is like a good place to be, like where it's like a good example is like a senior engineer on our team, right? Even just reading some of his code, I'm just like, wow, there is so much I'm learning just from like reading how you decided to do this. Like he'll send me like his merge requests and I'll read his stuff. And I'm like, wow, there are so many like small details about what he did, why he chose to do it this way that I could absolutely like work towards implementing in more of the stuff that I write. So I feel like I'm in a good place learning wise and challenge wise. So I think it's more of like a one day at a time thing for me.
Okay, I feel that. I like that. What do you feel like how do you feel like the job search went and like what tips would you have for the Coding with Callie community for finding that first job?
Um, Definitely network.
Okay. Did you
That
find your job through networking?
definitely found my job through networking.
Oh, yay. Tell me
Um,
more.
and then, well, it was someone that I went to the boot camp with. She was kind enough to refer me. And
Love
this is
that.
actually just like a plug for like, you never know how something's like going to turn out kind of deal. And so this is kind of like, I think to speak to, I know you're a really big fan of the idea of build in public. I don't know
Yes.
if that's what helped me or not. All I'll say is that so originally, um, somebody that I'd gone to the boot camp with at my current company put me in through a referral, did two interviews, and initially got rejected after like following up, like just being like, hey, super interested, hey, super interested, hey, super interested, and eventually got that rejection email. Uh,
Yeah.
and then had been building in public. I don't know if that was the thing, but eventually the CEO of the company reached back out to me.
Was yours
And
a Twitter clone?
yeah, I was just doing like a mock up of like Twitter.
Okay,
And so,
I remember that. Yeah, I really liked that. Okay, I couldn't
hey,
remember if that was you or not. Yeah, no, I thought that was really cool. And I loved watching each day you kind of added something else on. I feel like it had to help because it was a cool project.
I hope so. Yeah, yeah. I like to think so. So yeah, I mean, he reached out to me via LinkedIn. So, you never know, like maybe that just created some just like more like, hey, this guy's just here. Hey, this guy's just here. You never know like what just showing up on that like news feed is gonna do for just like making people like create associations in their mind about like, oh, this guy is active or, whatever. So I'd say definitely network and like building in public.
Okay, nice. What do you feel like do you feel like your boot camp prepared you for the professional world? And if there were pieces that were missing, what were those pieces?
I mean, I think a condensed immersive program is able to prepare anybody as much as it's able to prepare anybody. I mean, a super great program. I mean, definitely learned a lot from other people, and the teachers were fantastic. I mean, they taught us as much as they could, but 100% there are gaps, you know, uh, understanding workflow, right? Understanding, I think one of the biggest things was just understanding how to write APIs like kind of better. Because like definitely in the boot camp, there was no kind of like structure to like what is like actually like restful practices in APIs. It was definitely just
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, just write an API, just do whatever you want.
To
And
be
real
honest, I feel like I'm still learning like best practices because like, yeah, it was like, well, make it work. Like, does it do what you want it to do?
totally,
So like I feel like sometimes I'll like go back to refactor something and I'm like, what am I supposed to do here?
totally. Well, it's like a great case of like I watch like the senior engineer on our team, and he just like the way he writes like stuff for the APIs, it's just like it's very evident when I look at it. I'm just like, oh wow, this does one thing and it does it really well. And that's all it does.
Yes.
And that's all it should do. Like, and it just makes it like anytime I'm building something on top of his code, right? It's like very easy to then go like, oh, he already wrote this as its own like small section thing. So I definitely say the boot camp like prepared me in the sense that um, it got me started, but there's definitely just so much more to learn and just keep learning.
What advice would you give for bootcamp grads while they're job searching in terms of technical skills? What should they focus on, do you think, if anything?
Um, Truthfully, I really don't feel like I really just don't feel what's the word I'm looking for? Uh
I don't
Certified
know.
is not the right word. I don't
Qualified?
qualified. Yeah, there we go. I really don't feel qualified to like answer definitively like what is the right thing because there's so many avenues you can go in, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if you try to focus on all of it, like if you try to learn everything about DevOps, everything about front end, everything about back, everything about databases, like it's so much to learn. Like you could go that route. You could go the focused route and become a front end person. You could go back end. You could go DevOps. You could do the full stack. I think whatever you feel drawn to and passionate about is probably going to be the thing that like propels you in the right direction.
I think that's great advice. Yeah, I feel like there's so many people who are like, I need to learn these 10 technologies. And yeah, I like that advice. Find something that you like learning about and learn about it, and then kind of keep building on that. Because do you really want a job doing some like working with something that you hate? You know what I mean? Just because someone was like, this is what you should learn. So no, I think that's fair.
Right?
What are some of the skills or like things you needed to work on maybe when you got your job that kind of like helped you stand out or like you wish you would have done to kind of do better?
Like, what are some things you think? What are some things I think I should have done differently?
I guess like what like let's say someone gets the job, like what is a helpful thing to do as a junior developer to like, I guess let's focus it like how do you get mentorship on your team and like what are ways that like from your end you can kind of facilitate that relationship?
Yeah, I definitely say advocate, and then advocate for yourself in that sense, but then also try to like just build relationships like on your team that are totally like non-work related. Um, like I there's a guy on my team who's a senior engineer, and like I talk to him occasionally about like fantasy books that we're both into, and like I think just
Oh, I
like
love it.
developing those like human relationships is such a huge thing because you don't want to be that person that's just always talking to someone, constantly asking, for help with this, help me, help me, help me, help me, help me, Um, so I'd say just like, the human aspect of the relationships too.
Okay. So yeah, on the help me, help me, help me note, how long do you struggle with something before you reach out for help?
Depends what ticket I'm working on, depends on the deadline. If I realize like, hey, I have time to struggle with this, I'll let myself struggle with it for a certain period of time. But if it's sort of like, no, this guy just like has an ant, like this guy wrote this code, he wrote this entire component for right React, like, just gonna go ask him, hey, can you just walk me through this component really quickly, how it works, how does it get props, how does it pass props along, things like that, you know.
Okay, I like that. Like follow the business need. If I need it soon, reach out for
Yeah,
help.
I mean, because it's not about like at that point, it's like not about any individual in person. It's just about, hey, like we've got a deadline, we've got a thing we've got to meet. At that point, it's not about me failing as a dev or like someone else failing as a leader. It's just about us as a team. Like, let's just get this done.
So you mentioned earlier working, I think you mentioned working with product managers.
Yes.
Um, how, I guess, like, how do you navigate that relationship and how do you, like, what, I guess, like, how do you stay in your lane, but also, like, be part of the team? Is that, I know that was a concern at, like, my first role for full stack development. So I'm curious
So I really
what your
love,
experience is with that.
I really love that, or at least something I feel fortunate about, is all my product managers on my team are come from technical backgrounds.
Oh,
Um,
amazing.
so they've all been like former devs, and they still are devs in a manner of speaking. They've just kind of like moved into that kind of more like product, like project manager kind of role. So super fortunate about that, where it's just like I feel good about being able to then like tell them like, hey, like this is a bigger lift than I foresee myself being capable of completing in a sprint, you know. Um, so that's something I really enjoy about just like my company, and like I notice that helps like a natural kind of balance where I just feel like my project managers kind of get it, so to speak. Like um and so it doesn't really feel like this like separation in the relationship. It definitely feels like a lot more like fluid and a lot more just kind of like this one larger conversation between kind of like engineers who have less experience and then just engineers who have like a lot of experience.
Okay, so is it kind of like the product manager is also kind of like the tech lead too, or no?
Essentially. Essentially.
That's really interesting and really cool. Because yeah, I mean, I only have the one full stack job, but we had like tech lead was very separate from like product lead. And
For
so it
sure.
was like a lot of like conversations between tech lead and product lead and then disseminating information. That's
Yeah,
a cool way to do it though.
totally. But occasionally, right, there's obviously like customers like above all that. So some of that stuff gets like lost in translation, right? And you just do the best you can.
Yeah, for sure. Do you feel like the do you like the pace of your work and kind of like what how fast or slow do you feel like you like to code?
Yeah, sometimes it's really fast paced. Like this week, for instance, I just feel swamped and like I'm
Yeah.
just like at the office late and probably gonna head in early tomorrow. And then other times it's like, wow, like I could totally be like working on an extra ticket right now. And those are nice times too, right? Like, you've got that extra time and it's like, wow, okay, like this is an opportunity. I want to try to explore this feature that none of us have really talked about, but see what I can come up with as a potential solution.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's kind of like feast or famine. I felt that way in my full
Yeah.
stack role. It was either like way too busy or like, what are we doing today? Well, thank you so much for chatting with me, especially with the busy week that you're having. Is there anything you want to plug or talk about with the 5 people that will watch this?
No, just keep following Callie's stuff. It's really cool. She's a great dev to kind of know in this space. I connected with you like a year ago before I think you had your first job at that point. And you just had a lot of insightful tips and just like advice that was really helpful. Um, and if you like it, just keep doing it. And yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Well, thanks. I think that's like my favorite takeaway from our chat is like, if you like doing it, just keep doing it.
Totally.
That's a great piece of advice. All right. So I will let you get back and enjoy some of your evening before you have to head into work early tomorrow. I hope you meet your deadline and it chills out pretty soon here.
Awesome. Yeah. All right.
All
Appreciate
right.
you.
Thanks, Sean. Talk to you later.